Hi, I'm Mark Toole with 8020service.com. Today's customer service video question of the day is from Quora on the question, have Americans lowered their standards for quality customer service? There's only one answer here. It's not really very much related to the question as far as I see it. Some guys saying, no, they raise them because they don't want to pay fees for stuff. Well, that is true. I don't know if that's necessarily what I would consider to be standards for quality customer service. Some would say that people have, in fact, lowered their standards for quality customer service, and there's also an argument to be made for that as well. If you ever call a conventional business on the phone for customer service, you got to press 47 for English, you got to listen to their little hold music, you got to talk to a machine and say, representative, representative. Listen to it say, I'm sorry, I don't understand you, and go through that whole thing to get a hold of a mindless NPC, which, while polite because it's reading off a script written to be polite, it's not going to help you with your problem. It's just a mindless person. It's a person, but in the role of the job, just mindlessly parroting what it's told to say, doing what it's told to do, not really helping you. And people, you could argue, accept this. They put up with it. They think it's normal, and they go through this routine all day long. Excuse me. Is this an argument that they have, in fact, lowered their standards? Maybe. I would also argue that for a lot of these companies, they're doing this because they don't have any other choice. The consumers, I mean, are putting up with this because they don't have any other choice in the matter. So, what I mean by that is, if you have a problem with, say, I'm going to pick on the one that everyone always picks on, Comcast. You have a problem with your internet service. You could try to do some stuff. It's not going to work. Then you have to call them and talk to the NPC who tries to sell you a landline phone service because it's 2019 and you totally need a landline phone service. So that's one example, but you don't have any other choice. You have to go through this. You have to listen to the guy's pitch about the landline phone service. In this specific case, I even called them one time. I've got internet and that's it. And I called them and I said, listen, I've got a problem with my internet. I want it fixed. I know you've been told to try to sell me cable TV service. I don't want cable TV service. I know you've been told to try to sell me landline phone service. I don't want landline phone service. Please skip over this. You have it on a recording that you don't need to say this. And the guy proceeded to try to sell me those things anyways because he was told to. And I sat there and I listened to it. Because I lowered my standards? No, because I have literally no other options for high-speed internet where I live. And if it doesn't work, I have to listen to this dummy's sales pitch before I can get the damn thing fixed. That's the real answer. So, I don't think people have lowered their standards. However, I'm going to go further than that. I'm going to say that people actually should have and should be raising their standards and that they have failed to do so. The standards that people have for customer service, for what to expect from businesses in terms of customer service, is in a large part still stuck in the 20th century, the industrial age, the age that the 1950s or prior, where, yes, in those days, the person you spoke to would have been a lot more friendly and polite to you, I'm assuming. I wasn't alive then, but, people talk about the good old days, and, of course, everybody talking about the good old days. They were never as good as people say they are, obviously, but, point is, the guy was friendlier in those days, but there was also a lot that they had to do in those days that customers had to put up with, or didn't know any better to expect otherwise, that things that are no longer the case nowadays with the kind of technology that we have. If you had a subscription with, say, a national company that didn't have an office in your town, because that's still the olden days and people are used to hitching up the horse, or, not the 50s, of course, but, the Cadillac with the tail fins and heading down to the shop and talking to the owner and giving him a handshake and saying, thanks, let's get this worked out. 1950s, later, then people are getting, earlier and later, whenever, I'm not going to pick a specific year, people are ordering things through catalogs, magazines, etc. They're doing business with companies that don't have a physical presence in their location. But there was at the time a relatively newest at the time at least, technology, telephone, where they would have, if they needed something from these companies, they could, instead of writing a letter and waiting 3 weeks, they could pick up a phone and dial it, and someone would answer. Oh, nice, friendly woman wearing a dress, because people dress nice in those days. And she'd, oh, hi, good to hear from you, sir. Let's look into this for you. And that was novel, and that was good, and it was better than writing a letter, so people thought this was good customer service. And for the time, it was. But we do not live in the 1950s or the 1890s or any of these past years. We live in the current time, and technologies have been created that can and will and should and do supersede the picking up the telephone and talking to a guy when it comes to getting customer service. Depending what the issue is, if it's something simple, send an email. Somebody will get back to you, not within 3 weeks, not within 3 minutes, but maybe within 3 hours, you'll have a reply saying your thing's been resolved, we got this under control. Now, there are companies, I'm going to call you out again, HostGator, you suck, I'm still waiting for a reply weeks later on this thing. Not that you're watching this video, you're busy not giving a damn, but there are companies who abuse this. I've sent, like I said, HostGator, sent them numerous emails, dragging their heels, sending out dumb replies, all this other bullshit. This can certainly be done wrong, which is the only reason I see that customers still, in 2019, want to pick up a phone and call a company and talk to a guy and get him to do a thing. Because of the fact that these companies provide such terrible customer service that people want to pick up a phone so they can get in somebody's face and yell at them and think that their complaints will not be ignored because they're on a phone and the guy's not allowed to hang up on them, versus an email which he can ignore and no one really knows what's going on there. Still no reply from HostGator. There's that. But people really need to raise their standards for quality customer service. Customers do, and businesses. It's a two-way street. So if I send an email to you about something and you don't reply to my email, then why am I doing business with you? But customers just assume that's normal, and they think, well, you didn't reply to my email, I'll send 14 more emails and go on a live chat and say, hey, did you check on my email? And call them and say, hey, what's going on with my email? Instead of simply doing business with someone else. I'm not one to talk, although this particular HostGator issue is with not my personal account. So, anyways, you should have higher standards. You should expect that when you send someone an email or a live chat or a contact form on a website or any means of contact, that you're going to get a hold of a reasonable person who can make a decision and fix your problem. There's that, yes, sure, but it's bigger than that. And this second part isn't even technological. You could have done this in the 50s. I'd say that people did do this kind of stuff back in the 50s. So maybe this is your argument for lowering of customer service quality standards, is people think customer service starts when you pick up the phone and start pressing 47 for English and the smooth jazz 1990s porno music comes on. That's customer service. When I have a problem with your service or a question I need answered or something I can't do myself that you need to help me with, and I contact you for help with that thing. That is not when customer service begins. That's when customer service begins to go wrong. Customer service begins the second I hear of your product existing, the second I consider buying it, the second I do buy it, the second I try to log in, the entire time I'm aware of your product, using your product, purchasing your product, etc. That's when customer service truly begins. And if you think about it this way, the number one best thing you can do, which people probably did do back in the 50s and earlier, is to anticipate the kind of problems and questions that your customers might have and to proactively fix and prevent those things. So instead of calling customer service, emailing customer service, writing a long-form handwritten cursive letter, licking a thing and mailing it about a customer service issue, your customer instead doesn't have the issue at all. They don't have the problem, and they just continue to buy and use and benefit from your product. I've talked about this so many times on here, it's beginning to sound repetitive, but I'm going to continue talking about it because this is a thing that nobody talks about. So, Americans have in some ways raised their standards, in some ways lowered their standards. And in some ways, they've stayed the same when they should have, in fact, been raised. There's no reason in 2019 to expect customer service to be terrible from businesses. And if you're running a business, if you're running a customer service department, even if it's a small side hustle thing up to a multi-million-dollar business, I've helped with all of this. There are many things you can do to get this stuff right. To do what I talked about, whether you want to call that 1950 style or not, anticipating and preventing problems before they happen, making sure that most customers never have to contact you about anything. With the internet and all the technology we have available to us right now, that should be the default path. If most of your customers have to contact you at all, ever, you're doing something wrong. Most of them should never speak to you. You should know nothing about them. You maybe don't even know they exist unless you go into your shopping cart software and see, oh, look, this guy's bought from me every month for the last 3 years. Must be a really good customer. And yeah, you can look into that stuff. I'm not saying don't look into that stuff. I'm saying this idea that you'll be providing service to most of your customers in the conventional sense of that term is flawed and dangerous because it makes people what am I trying to say here? It causes companies to allow problems to continue to exist when they could be solved under the justification that we're paying someone to handle this, let's let them handle it rather than interfering and fixing it. And it's just backwards, and it's just wrong, and that's my answer to this question. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. It's getting a little long. As always, like I've said before, I do one of these videos every weekday on a customer service topic. I've been taking them from Quora in the past. I've been doing these on Quora for a while. I've just started posting them to YouTube as well. So if you have a question about customer service, customer retention, customer satisfaction, things like that, ask me on Quora. Ask me in the comments here on YouTube if you're watching it there, and I'll try to answer it in a future video if it's interesting. Some people ask not very good questions, so make it a good question, please, and I'll try to answer it. As always, if you thought this video was interesting, useful, valuable, hit upvote, hit like, hit thumbs up, whatever platform you're watching. Follow, subscribe, so you don't miss out on these. And otherwise, that's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow with another video.